ESPN Sports Radio 1300 and 92.5.
Now for something completely different.
We're gonna bring it all together.
Because that's the bottom line.
ESPN Radio 1300, 92.5. It's the bottom line with Brad Taylor, presented by Stable Duel. Sports talk from a handicapping perspective. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday. Miss Judy, please take your meds today, or I will tell the world about your genius Preakness picks yesterday. Talk about coming back down to reality. Sheesh, unbelievable. 859-381-1313 is the number to call to join in on the fun and excitement. You can email the show anytime, bottomlinelex@gmail.com. And you can follow us on Twitter @bottomlinelex. On today's show, a sportsbook has released their SEC football odds, and the Big Blue Nation is already complaining. What a shocker. The NBA season finally ends today, so we can finally start handicapping the NBA playoffs starting this week. The alleged best team in Major League Baseball makes a very surprising move. Vince Stover of the Sports Stove podcast will join us to talk all things in the sports world. And, of course, the most profitable segment at Lexington Radio, our Mac Daddy Stogie Picks, presented by Jake's Cigar Bar. We've got the volume on full blast this morning because we're having a difficult time hearing you or anything else due to all the cash money in our ears. Our official bottom line horse racing expert, Peyron Harris of Richmond, gave us the trifecta yesterday. All three horses he picked finished in the top three. So congratulations to him on those great calls. We hope you got in on that one. And, of course, we picked the biggest Major League Baseball underdog on the board yesterday, a team that had lost 9 of their last 10 games, and they take down a division leader that was starting a pitcher that was 5-0, had an ERA under 1, and the guy had just thrown a no-hitter a few weeks ago. Yeah, no big deal. You don't get this stuff anywhere else around here, I can promise you. All this and much, much more coming up on this week's Sunday edition of Lexington's fastest-growing sports talk radio experience. But first, Hulk Hogan. Let me tell you something, brother. Before you flip the channel, we are not going to start talking about professional wrestling on this show. Our good friend Angelo Carriero, whose show will be coming up later this morning after the bottom line, he talks about wrestling on his show, and I just give him a hard time about it sometimes. I'll tell him something like, the good book tells us when I was a child, I thought childish things, but when I became an adult, I put away my childish things. I haven't watched wrestling this century, other than just for a couple of minutes at a time, just to make fun of it, because I grew out of it. But when I was a kid in the 80s, my friends and I liked professional wrestling because we thought it was funny. And every year they had WrestleMania, the biggest event of the year. And the good guys always seemed to win at WrestleMania. Some evil challenger would come to challenge the good guy Hulk Hogan. Guys like Rowdy Roddy Piper and King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant, Sergeant Slaughter, whoever. And two of my personal favorites, Bobby the Brain Heenan and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. They would all challenge Hulk Hogan, and it would always look like that the good guy Hulk Hogan was going to lose, but then the Hulkster would make that amazing comeback that everyone knew was inevitable, and he would win. And then the music would start, and the bad guy that lost would somehow invisibly and just mysteriously disappear without anyone noticing, and then Hulk Hogan would flex his muscles for 10 minutes and then tell kids to take their vitamins, drink their milk, listen to their parents, stay in school, and be a real American. And because I was a different kid, that just made me sick, because I always rooted against Hulk Hogan. But Hulk Hogan always won the final match at WrestleMania every year for the 80s. And everyone goes home happy. Well, except me, because I didn't like Hulk Hogan. But in the 80s, it was good for business that the good guys won the biggest event of the year. Every single year. And that is the phrase that's used to this day in wrestling. What's best for business. But in the real world today, we all do what's best for business. All the time. Every day. We go to jobs because we get paid to do it. We make decisions every day based on what's best for business. We pick games every day on this show. And those picks are red hot right now, by the way. But every decision of games to pick is what's best for business. Sometimes you have to make the tough decisions that piss people off, and you look like the bad guy. But if it's best for business, it's often the right decision, whether it makes you popular or not. Yesterday at Pimlico Racetrack, the result might not have been something anyone expected, and there will be no Triple Crown winner this year. That's exactly what the horse racing industry wants every year, the Triple Crown. A horse to win the first 2 races of the Triple Crown, and then those 3 weeks of hype to get ready for the Belmont in June. But this year, it might be what's best for business that they don't have a Triple Crown. Because the resident Bobby the Brain Heenan of horse racing himself, Bob Baffert, just got busted for cheating. What if Baffert's horse, Medina Spirit, actually won the Preakness yesterday? Do you think this mysterious second blood sample that has taken over 2 weeks now to be examined, now how does that happen? Would that have possibly been ruled clean if Medina Spirit had won? So now that the Belmont would get its usual buzz and hype for a potential Triple Crown winner. Possibly. We come up with conspiracy theories all the time on this show. We love them because it's entertaining radio to some people, and I just get a kick out of it. But the bad guy lost yesterday. Bob Baffert's horses lost, and a horse named Rombauer won. So no Triple Crown this year. And the fringe fans who only watch 2 or 3 races a year probably won't even tune into the Belmont now. Because if you think about it, it was probably for the best that Medina Spirit lost so that you wouldn't have to face 3 weeks of steroid talk and Bob Baffert being compared to Lance Armstrong. That'll all kind of die down now. But this comes down to Bob Baffert himself. He did his little media car wash last week saying it was the cancel culture. And there was no way he tested positive. Then the next day, maybe he did take some ointment that forced him to test positive. Baffert sounded just like everyone else in the last 40 years who's been busted for PEDs and denied it. Everybody. And how many of those guys in the last 40 years were proven right? I don't remember any either. The fact that horse racing even let Medina Spirit race yesterday was very questionable judgment, but in the end, they did what was best for business. So just like WrestleMania back in the 80s, the good guy always won at the end. Only this time, it was more about the bad guy losing because we didn't even know who the good guy was. The Belmont will be in 3 weeks. Bob Baffert will be there with his horses, and you'll hear very little, if anything, about Medina Spirit's positive drug test. And life will seemingly return all the way back to normal with the bad guys mysteriously swept under the rug. Just like how life always returned to normal when Hulk Hogan would win WrestleMania every single year back in the day, whether we liked it or not. And that's the bottom line. ESPN Radio 1300, 92.5. The Bottom Line with Brad Taylor, presented by Stable Duel. Sports talk from a handicapping perspective. Speaking of the Preakness yesterday, we want to thank the good people over at Stable Duel for having us out to their big shindig yesterday over at Mirror Twin Brewing. Even the Bottom Line showed up for a few minutes just to show our appreciation to Brian Howard and the gang over there. I couldn't believe how many people they had outside over there. It was a beautiful day. There's a ton of people out there. Even our arch nemesis, Dead Air Dennis Dillon of 92.1 Classic Rock was there. The only bad part of the day was that I left before the race started, so I couldn't point and laugh at Dead Air Dennis for picking a bunch of losers yesterday. Wait, is it? It's bad form to insult other on-air hosts on the air, right? Well, wait, didn't I just do that? You're darn right I did. Sorry, Dead Air Dennis. I didn't mean to tell the people that you picked more boogers out of your nose yesterday than winners. Oh, well, we will hear from him in a few weeks on the Belmont. 3 weeks for the Belmont. He could get his revenge on us then. And we'll hear from our Stable Duel friends then as well, Brian Howard and the gang. Good time had by all yesterday. We want to thank Stable Duel and the Mirror Twin Brewery for their hospitality. But in the mile-high air last night, it looked like the Reds were going to fall victim to another edition of the Rocky Shuffle, following behind in the first inning in Denver. But somehow, some way, despite their bullpen doing their best yet again to blow another game. Sheesh, that bullpen. We'll talk about that in a minute. The Reds won anyway, 6-5 in 12 innings, mainly because Colorado was on their 9th pitcher by the end of that game. and probably just said, you know what, let's just either hit a 3-run homer or go home, whatever. Regardless, the Reds finally won a game in this series. Nick Castellanos, 3 hits, upping his average now to 326. Remember last year, he got off to a great start the first month of the season, and then the second month he was terrible. Let's hope that doesn't happen for him this year. The only productive hitters for the Reds this year have been Castellanos and Jesse Winker, ironically, who are now hitting 1-2 in the Reds lineup. What a great lineup decision by David Bell. What a genius. Oh, wait. Eugenio Suarez and his league worst 148 batting average continue to hit cleanup. So much for those great lineup decisions from your genius manager, David Bell. The fourth, and thankfully for the Reds, final game of this series, and the final day of this 10-day road trip will be played today in Denver, a game that can be heard right here on ESPN Radio 1300 and 92.5 at 2:40 this afternoon. The Reds, again, for the fourth time in this series, will be favored. They're the chalk today, very small, though. They're minus 115 right now. Their mysterious former Rocky Jeff Hoffman starts for them, 2-3 on the year, 4.70 ERA. And Antonio Senzatella starts for Colorado, 1-4, and a Coors Field-like 5.97 ERA. You may have never heard of Antonio Senzatella, but he started 77 games for the Rockies in his career, and he's been about as average of a pitcher as you can get, with a career ERA plus of 98 over that career, meaning he's about 2% less than the average pitcher. But the Rockies are actually a slightly decent investment today because Senzatella's starts over his career have actually been profitable. In his 77 starts for the Rockies, Colorado is 39-38. When Senzatella starts, that's a return on investment of 8.9%. And if you blindly put $1 on Senzatella every time he started for Colorado, it'd be up $6.85 right now. That's not bad. But where Senzatella makes his hay is at home, shockingly enough. How can you find big betting trends with Colorado Rockies home pitchers? Well, the Rockies are 25-14 when Senzatella starts at home. There's a $5 fine from my phone lighting up there. That's a 31.3 return on investment when Senzatella starts at home. That's cashing some tickets right there. And then Senzatella at home as an underdog, he's 14-10, a 32.8% return on investment. That's stacking some papers. But speaking of mediocre pitchers, Jeff Hoffman returns to his original home stadium, being a former Rocky, and he'll pitch for the Reds today. We talk about splits for the Rockies pitchers. With the Rockies for 5 years, Hoffman had an ERA of 6.20. With the Reds this year, 4.70. That's about par for the course in terms of splits, home and road for former Rockies pitchers. The Reds are 3-4 when Hoffman starts this year, but the Reds have been favored in 4 of those 7 games. So, technically, the Reds have not lived up to expectations when Hoffman starts for the Reds. But Hoffman, he's just a guy. You hear the term innings eater quite often for a third or fourth starter in the rotation who might give you 150-plus innings. But Hoffman only averages 4 1/3 innings starts per start this year, so he's not even giving you to 5 innings. Only once in his 6 seasons has Hoffman ever had an ERA plus of 100, indicating that he was an average pitcher. And that was the first season of his career when his ERA plus was exactly an even 100. And in his career, Hoffman's teams, they don't win very much when he starts. Hoffman's team's 19-26 in his career during starts. In other words, it's a very risky investment, especially as a favorite at Coors Field today, because as a favorite in his career, Hoffman's team's 7-13 lifetime. So when they're favored to win, they're barely hitting 33%. So the Reds, minus 115 this morning over the Rockies in Colorado. The Reds' bullpen is a little more rested than the Rockies is today. But David Bell used his only bullpen ace, TJ Antone, very early in games this week. So much for him getting saves anytime soon. Is he going to get saves? Is anybody going to get saves for the Reds going forward? We have no idea. Antone came into a game in the 5th inning earlier this week. So who's the closer right now? I'd take odds on almost anyone getting the next save chance for this team. That's how up in the air it is. And with a combination of lousy performances and totally inconsistent misusage of their only effective reliever in TJ Antone. Antone, of course, pitched the 8th and 9th of a tie game last night. He got 2 perfect innings. Since allowing 4 runs on May 2nd, Antone responded 5 1/3 hitless innings, striking out 8 since May 2nd. Lucas Sims got the extra innings save last night, but it wasn't really an opportunity. He got the opportunity last night. He could not convert it, of course. The guy who got the save last night, Heath Hembry, got his first save. He's yet to allow an earned run in 9 innings so far this year. Who knows who's going to get the next save chance? Probably Antone, but can you bet on anybody right now? Who knows? Good luck if you're in fantasy with these guys. The Rockies used everyone in their bullpen last night, so the bullpen is just a push right now. If you're a Reds fan, go ahead and go with the Reds today. I had this game basically a toss-up. I wouldn't lay a minus 115 on Jeff Hoffman ever, but some people will. I would consider it at minus 110, but anything more than that is just crazy talk. Good luck today if you're on this one, because we'll pass, and that's the bottom line. ESPN Radio 1300, 92.5. The Bottom Line with Brad Taylor, presented by Stable Duel. Sports talk from a handicapping perspective. It's the middle of May. Of course, that means only one thing here in Lexington: college football talk. College football doesn't start for 3.5 months, but when the sports books put out the SEC odds, we have to talk about it because, well, that's who we are here on the Bottom Line. DraftKings now has their SEC football season odds out for 2021, and the Big Blue Nation they're irate over these odds. Why? They aren't getting the credit out in the desert they feel like they should be getting. The SEC East, Georgia, the favorite, 5-2. Florida, 3-1. Here's the thing. Here's the rub right here. Missouri, 5-1. Third on the list here. Kentucky and Tennessee, both at 14-1. And then South Carolina, 33-1. Vandy at 150-1. How is Missouri at 5-1, way ahead of Kentucky and even Tennessee? Is Missouri really that good? Who knows right now? But at least they have a coach, they have a quarterback, something we have never been able to say about Kentucky in terms of the quarterback position. How is Tennessee and Kentucky both the same at 14-1? Didn't Tennessee lose like 20, 25 players to the transfer portal? Yes, they did. But though their coach was fired this year, they've had top 15 recruiting classes for the last 3 or 4 years. They have a transfer quarterback coming in and another 5-star quarterback coming in. So do they have talent? Yeah, they have talent. They have a new coach. That's probably what they needed. They've still got a little bit of talent there that didn't transfer out. But the Cat fans are looking around and saying, wait a minute. We beat Tennessee by 100 points in Knoxville this year. We've had great recruiting classes, using that term very loosely. But around here, we know that the Kentucky recruiting classes, they get fired up for these three-star recruits, while Alabama just laughs. Where's our 5-star recruits? That's kind of the way the media treats it around here. But that's okay. It's okay. The odds are out now. Kentucky 14-1 to win the SEC East. I'm sure a lot of people here in Lexington say, wow, that's a bargain. We don't think as much. Missouri at 5-1, we'll agree with you. That is a little overrated, if you ask us. For the total SEC, Alabama's basically even money, minus 110. Georgia, 5-2. A&M is the third choice at 7-1. LSU, 10-1. Florida, 12-1. Kentucky down the line, 50-1 to win the SEC. So if you're one of those in the Big Blue Nation who says, this is the year, we've got a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator, 50-1, there you go. I can tell you this, we won't be with you. May the winners be yours, but we won't be with you on that one. And that's the bottom line. ESPN Radio 1300, 92.5. The Bottom Line with Brad Taylor. Sports talk from a handicapping perspective, brought to you by Stable Duel. Coming up after the break, it's the most profitable segment in Lexington Radio, our Mac Daddy Stogie Picks, presented by Jake's Cigar Bar, and we are on fire right now, so make sure you stay tuned. That's coming up next, right here on ESPN Radio 1300 and 92.5. ESPN Radio 1300, 92.5. It's the Bottom Line with Brad Taylor. Sports talk from a handicapping perspective. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning. We really appreciate it. What the heck are the Dodgers thinking? They just signed Albert Pujols yesterday. Last week on this show, we detailed how truly horrible this guy has been over the last 6 years. And now the Dodgers, allegedly the best team in Major League Baseball, signed this guy with no DH. Don't play DH in the National League still, so he has to play the field. He's 41 years old, allegedly. Most of Major League Baseball knows he's older. But the Dodgers, And he hit 198 this year, batting average. No wonder he was cut. The Dodgers looking for a proven winner, apparently. Dodgers, Pujols didn't win one playoff game in his 10 years with the Angels, so I don't get it. This team now has 4 former MVPs on the roster and 3 former Cy Young winners. So, yeah, it's tough to bet against them, but it's tough to bet on them right now, too. The Dodgers probably need to focus on that lousy bullpen a little more than now that they lost their second-best player, in my opinion, Corey Seager, their shortstop. Just fractured his hand. He'll be out for weeks, I'm sure. Yeah, they need to focus on that instead of a 41-year-old, allegedly, first baseman that hasn't been himself in over a decade. That's the bottom line on that. Final day of the NBA regular season today. It's amazing how LeBron and Anthony Davis appear out of nowhere yesterday when they need to actually win a game or two. It's amazing how that happens when these newfangled playoff play-in games happen. Yeah, my phones light up every day like a Christmas tree the last few weeks with updates. Player A is out tonight. Player B is playing tonight. That's why it's so difficult to handicap these NBA regular season games. Who's playing? Who needs load management? Who cares? Who's tanking? Well, it's too difficult for the regular season for me. We'll look forward to the playoffs when we'll actually get real games with everyone at full strength. Of course, the NBA had a Hall of Fame ceremony yesterday. Kobe, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, they got in. This isn't a very popular opinion, but I thought Tim Duncan was a better player than Kobe. I know the Laker Nation thinks that's crazy talk, but the numbers bear it out. I could almost make an argument Kevin Garnett was just as good as Kobe, but I don't think so. Falls just short of that one. Good news, Chris Webber was announced yesterday. He'll be in the Hall of Fame next class. I need a total out in the desert. How many timeout references will be made on that day? Yes, we need a timeout. That was 1993. Yeah, some things you just don't get over. Just ask Bill Buckner. But, of course, if they let Ben Wallace into the Hall of Fame, Chris Webber should be in out of respect alone. But, hey, enough silliness. Let's get down to what you're here for. It's time for our Mac Daddy Stogie Picks, the most profitable segment at Lexington Radio, presented by Jake's Cigar Bar. How did you celebrate those winners yesterday? Well, you should have headed down on to Jake's Cigar Bar at Brandon Crossing and lit up that Mac Daddy Stogie before the games end, before the races end. As they say at Jake's, smoke local, drink local, cross the line with us at Jake's Cigar Bar. That's at Brandon Crossing. Go tell our friends Jake and Autumn down there that the bottom line sent you. They'll treat you like kings like they do us. Jake'sCigarBar.com. And if you would have had our Mac Daddy Stogies yesterday, plural, if you would listen to us, you'd be smoking a lot of Mac Daddy Stogies today. As we mentioned earlier, our official bottom line horse racing expert, Peyron Harris of Richmond, he gave us all 3 horses in the trifecta. Great handicapping by our guy Peyron, who's been doing this forever. So kudos to him on his great picks. We hope you got in on some of that. And, of course, we gave you the Kansas City Royals, the biggest underdog on the board yesterday, to upset the White Sox, whose Carlos Rodon had been as good as any pitcher in Major Leagues this year. Just saying, people, if you aren't paying attention to this show, you're missing out. Don't come down with a case of FOMO, fear of missing out. So we delve back into the NBA playoffs next week, but it's all about Major League Baseball again for us today. Favorites yesterday in Major League Baseball, they just went 8-7. Of course, the Royals, the biggest underdog to win. Some teams have some value today. Kansas City has a little value again. The Cardinals tonight, the ESPN game, Arizona, the Phillies, the Angels. But we're going to go to Pittsburgh. The San Francisco Giants, minus 165 this morning over the lowly Pittsburgh Pirates. Let's look at these records. Oh, the Giants are 23-16. Pirates 17-22. Oh, it's a mismatch. Let's look at these pitchers. Alex Wood, where's he been the last few years? He's pitching like a crazy guy this year, but in the last 2 years, he's been worse than average. This year, 4-0, 1.80 ERA. Mitch Keller for the Pirates, 2-4, 7.81 ERA. You've lost your mind. Well, we may have lost our mind, but we're stacking papers. We're going to play against San Francisco today. San Francisco this season, they've won 23 games, but when they're on the road and they're favored this year, they're 1-6. They've been favored 7 times on the road this year, and they've lost 6 of those 7. Overall on the road, the Giants 9-12, and they're 10-10 when they're favored this year, and they've already lost 2 of the first 3 in this series. So give us Pittsburgh today. They're getting a lot of value. They're the home team. Their bullpen is well rested, and this isn't the contrarian play like we had yesterday with KC. But the early numbers had this as the most lopsided game in terms of money out in the desert. About 80% of the money right now on the Giants. So we'll take Pittsburgh. They're getting value, and they're not the public team today. The public is all over San Francisco. We always like that spot. Pirates over Giants today in Major League Baseball. Man, if you've got a little extra bankroll from yesterday, just bring a little bit on that first half over. We see a little offense in that game early today. You'll see over 4 in that. Pirates over Giants. That's our Mac Daddy Stogie. You can take that bad boy to the desert or Jake's Cigar Bar, and you can smoke them. But coming up after the break, Vince Stover of the Sports Stove Podcast. He'll join us. We'll talk all things sports with him. That's right. Coming up next, right here. ESPN Radio 1300, 92.5. ESPN Radio 1300, 92.5. It's The Bottom Line with Brad Taylor. Presented by Stable Duel. Sports talk from a handicapping perspective. And with us now is one of our regular guests here on The Bottom Line. And he's one of our favorite guests. Well, he's probably our favorite because he's been on more than anybody else. He's our good friend, Vince Stover. Vince, the host of the Sports Stove Podcast. Vince, how you doing this morning, buddy?
Man, I am doing wonderful, wonderful. What a beautiful morning we have. And a little bit of rain to cool us off, and a good day to take a nap, I'd say.
Well, that's Mr. Positivity right there, ladies and gentlemen. Some of us are trying to cash tickets today, and Vince is just worried about taking a nap. That's the difference between him and us. Vince, first of all, I know you're a huge Green Bay Packers fan, and they moved the meter this week because they signed a quarterback that was just in a conference championship game a couple years ago. Blake Bortles, the chances that he starts opening day for the Packers. Go.
I don't think there's any chance in the world he starts opening day for the Packers. Okay. No, he's third-string quarterback at best at this point. But, it's funny how people reacted to this. When you have a guy who was drafted in the first round not that many years ago, and, he wasn't a great quarterback, obviously, but he was in the AFC Championship game. If you bring him in to be your third-string quarterback or even your second-string quarterback, that's a risk worth taking, I'd say, any day of the week.
So Jordan Love, I guess he's going to be the backup. And I'm looking at the Packers right now. I don't see them. They have their win totals taken off the board out in the desert. But the Packers are still the favorite in the division at minus 125. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. You're of the belief that it's all going to be settled and Aaron Rodgers is going to sign a new contract and everything's going to be forgiven and all is going to be well the first game of the season. Would you take that minus 125 the Packers? We know you're a fan. And the percentage chance that Aaron Rodgers takes that first snap for the Packers this year.
I think the percentage chance for Rodgers taking the opening day snap is probably in the upper 90 percentile.
Okay.
I think you look at the Packers as a whole as a team. They're the best team in the division. Minnesota's got some good talent, but they've got some big holes. Detroit, is Detroit. And then Chicago, they still have as many quarterback issues as anybody, although I think Justin Fields and Andy Dalton will be an improvement over what they had last year. So I think they're still the favorite for a reason. I think they're the best team in the division, and I think Rodgers will be the quarterback, which makes them far and above the best team in the division.
I always hate betting these player props for like MVP awards that are voted on because it's always about the narrative. Do the voters, what narrative do they want to play? So it's not about who the best player is. It's about what the media wants to spin, what kind of story. And I look at the MVP voting. I've got Patrick Mahomes, the favorite, Aaron Rodgers, second. Is that fair? Even I see down the list, Josh Allen is third, Dak Prescott is fourth, if you can believe that. Is that fair to put Aaron Rodgers second in the MVP race in terms of out in the desert?
I mean, he's not going to win back-to-back MVPs.
You don't think so?
I mean, maybe if he goes to a different team, then there's some potential for that. But no, I don't think back-to-back MVP is in the cards right now. I think Dak Prescott, that's a good one to look at because if he comes back healthy, their offense is going to be phenomenal. It was great before he got hurt last year, and had it not been for their horrible defense, Dallas would have been winning games. So I think I like that Dak Prescott sitting there at number 4.
I look down this list here and I see Deshaun Watson at 50-1 to win the MVP. He's probably about 15th on the list right there. I'll give you a prop right here. Number of games combined will Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers play on opening day? 0, 1, or 2 for their current teams.
I would say 1.
You think Rodgers will play and Watson won't?
Watson's not playing. Yeah, Watson's going to, at the very least, be suspended, let alone, holding out. I mean, I think, he's more likely to not hold out now than he was before, just because now it's like, okay, well, I need to do something. But, I think the league's going to suspend him at least 4, if not 6 games. But they're still, man, that seems quiet down, hasn't it? I mean, we still don't know everything for that. We don't know exactly what's going to be finalized, proven, what it's going to look like in the end.
If he plays half the games this year, I'll be shocked. If Deshaun Watson gets 8 games in, I will be shocked at that. But the big buzz this week, of course, we all know we're contractually obligated. Tim Tebow to Jacksonville. Who knew that Trevor Lawrence wouldn't even be the first or second headline? It's Tim Tebow all the way. How much do you rank Jacksonville higher up your list? How many extra wins does Tim Tebow give the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I don't know that he gives them any more wins, but I think it's a smart move. Jacksonville, think about a number 1 overall draft pick in Trevor Lawrence that has very little pressure on him now. He got kind of skipped over in the draft process because everybody knew he was going number 1, so everybody wanted to talk about the juicy quarterbacks. So he got kind of let go of all that pressure. Then now Tim Tebow comes in and steals the spotlight, and everybody's looking at Tim Tebow and not Trevor Lawrence. This kid's going to come in with very little pressure, very little stress, and have an opportunity to just come in and play football. And I think that might add some wins. Is Tebow going to be on the roster for the regular season? There's a lot of questions about that. I don't see why not. I don't see why he can't be a second or third tight end on the team. But, I think it does help the team in the sense that it takes a lot of the spotlight off of Trevor Lawrence, which is going to help him just prepare to play football.
How long is it? If Trevor Lawrence gets injured, and heaven, we don't want anybody to get injured, but I mean, let's say he misses a game or 2. And then you've got all your backup quarterbacks, Minshew, and all of a sudden, but here, we're in Florida, and Florida loves Tebow, national champions twice, Heisman Trophy. There's people not asking for Tebow instead of Gordon Minshew? You're crazy?
No, listen, Gardner Minshew, he's the backup at this point. There's still some talk that he's going to get moved, but at this point, Tim Tebow's never playing quarterback in the NFL. Now, will he do what Taysom Hill does in New Orleans? There's potential for that, where he throws maybe 5 passes a year, does some trick plays and things like that. But he's not a quarterback. He won't be a quarterback. And even being in Florida, even being under Urban Meyer, that's not happening.
Schedule came out this week. And the biggest game, and you've heard it ad nauseum already, and these tickets are going for outrageous prices, Tom Brady's return trip to New England. Do you think that Belichick will have a plan for him? And I know we're forecasting. Lord knows we're sitting here in the middle of May talking about the NFL season. But do you think that Belichick will actually have something ready for Tom Brady to make sure that he tells the rest of the world, oh, yeah, well, Tom Brady left me and won a Super Bowl, but I'm still the reason the Patriots won all of the Super Bowls to begin with?
Look at Bill Belichick's offseason. Look at the free agents he signed. He signed guys that are going to come and hit Tom Brady. It's the only reason he signed them. They've never spent that kind of money in free agency. They've never done the things that they've done this offseason before. He did it all for the purpose of one game this coming season when Tom Brady comes back to town. And they are going to pile on him like nothing else. He's going to be out to prove that that Brady is a system quarterback, and he knows the system, and he knows how to beat the system, and ultimately that's what they did this offseason, bringing in guys. That kid from Baltimore they brought in, the edge rusher. There's a reason. There's a reason. It's not because they play in a tough division. It's because Tom Brady's coming to town this year.
Patriots win total 9, over or under right now.
In a 17-game season, man, I would probably say 9's probably the right number on the dot. So I would stay away from the number total, I guess, and maybe I would lean over because they did improve their roster a lot this year. And I think, the Jets are going to be on a learning curve. Buffalo might come down a little bit. Miami is maybe a little bit better, but I'm not sold on Tua. So maybe over if I was forced to pick, but I think 9's probably the right number.
And we talk about these win totals. I'm still not of the mindset yet. Okay, when I see 9, I'm thinking, okay, can they go 9-7? You're right. It's 9-8 now. It's like I'm still thinking, okay, when I see these win totals, I'm thinking 16-game season. I still haven't kind of changed. It's like the San Diego Chargers. I'm still calling it the San Diego Chargers. I haven't conditioned my brain to figure out that they're the L.A. Chargers yet. We can talk about football, what's football season, but we're in baseball season right now. And I'm looking at the Cincinnati Reds here in the National League Central. We talk about them all the time. We are the voice of the Reds here on ESPN Radio 1392.5. They're only 3.5 games out. They're a half game behind your Milwaukee Brewers and the St. Louis Cardinals. The Reds, this recent road trip, especially this trip to Colorado, hasn't infused much confidence in the Reds nation, don't you think?
I don't know. Listen, it's hard for me because I cheer for another team in the division. I try my best to be unbiased, but I don't know how anybody that's a Reds fan can be confident in anything positive for Cincinnati moving forward. They're going to have good games. They're going to win games. They're not going to be horrible. They're under 500. They're 5-5 in their last 10, plus 1 run differential. I mean, they're home. They're only 10-7 at home, I think, and 8-12 on the road. So there's nothing to be confident about. I don't think with anybody in the Central Division, honestly. I still think St. Louis is the best team. I've thought that all along. But this is a year someone could jump up and steal something last minute, but not because you're confident about it, just because that's the way the cards fall.
Well, I am biased because I may have a little bit of investment in the Brewers, 3-1 to win this division. So does that make us biased? Maybe a little bit. But when you talk about the Reds, they're just a team. Out in the desert before the season, they were 81.5 wins. That was their projected win total. That's exactly half, basically. And now you sit there, they're 18-19. That's basically half. So they're kind of playing up to or down to expectations, depending on how you look at it. But I look at lineup construction and the bullpen for this team. Joey Votto, he's out now, but when he comes back, does he deserve to be hitting third? And Eugenio Suarez has literally been the worst hitter in Major League Baseball for the first 6 weeks of the season, and yesterday he's batting cleanup. Granted, it's in Colorado. He had a decent week. He had a couple of home runs, but he's still hitting below 150. David Bell lineup construction. Your thoughts?
Man, if you're going to lead off with Winker every game,
he might be the slowest man in baseball. He's top 10, the slowest guys in baseball. Yes.
It's like he's trying to do the exact opposite of everybody else in the league, hoping that works out for him. It reminds me of the Phoenix Suns after the Nash years when they bring in Shaq and they slow everything down and try to get big and old. It doesn't work. And right now the Reds are trying to do everything opposite of what the league is doing, and it's proving to not work, at least not work well.
We're going to have a little personal side wager here for a bucket of pride. Next save for the Reds. Who gets it?
That's an interesting question.
Next save for the Reds. I'll take whoever you don't take, but we'll probably both be wrong. But go ahead.
Man, I don't. I honestly have no idea. I'm so confused about Cincinnati right now. We knew that their bullpen was going to be shady anyhow, but man, I don't know. Throw anybody in there on all.
It is a trick question. So it was a difficult trick question. I apologize for giving you such a hard one. I had a lot of time to sit here to study for it, and I still don't know the answer myself. So what's the big deal? But, I mean, we look at this division. The Cardinals, I think that this team, I don't want to say fraud, but, I mean, it's like lather, rinse, repeat. They're always the Cardinals. Guys like Adam Wainwright have been there for 57 years, and they still, by the end of the year, they still got a 14-8 record somehow, some way. I think they're a fraud. I think I'm still with the Brewers winning this division. I know you're a Brewers fan and you follow this team. Call me crazy for saying the Brewers will still win this division.
I mean, I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sure. They've gotten some good pitching from their top 3 pitchers. Mm-hmm. They've really been struggling with the 4 and 5 guy in the rotation. The bullpen has been okay. The end of the bullpen's been good. The middle of the bullpen is what struggles. And then their bats just really haven't gotten going. And Yelich being injured a lot. He'll be back soon. He was down in Nashville playing a rehab game this weekend. But, I don't know. They're going to have to get something rolling and get on a tear. Their defense has been really good. My goodness, Jackie Bradley had a heck of a play in center field last night. But, they got to have to get the bats going, and that middle of the bullpen is going to have to really start playing up to their potential if they're going to surpass St. Louis.
The Dodgers just signed Albert Pujols. I should go out to the desert immediately, correct?
Well, I mean, you should have already been there for the Dodgers. So
but
I don't know that
this absolutely puts them over the top. They just signed Albert Pujols. How old is he?
Yeah, I mean, he's old. Well, nobody knows.
Yes, that's true.
Listen, I don't think it's ever a bad thing to add someone like Albert Pujols into your dugout. And what is he going to play much? No. Is he going to be a pinch hitter here and there? Sure. You talk about the World Series, when they get a pinch hitter for a few games, that's going to come in handy. I like the move by L.A. I like the move, and Albert probably wanted to stay in L.A., so makes sense for everybody. I got no problem with it.
I don't know why they did it, but anyway. Hey, NBA playoffs. They start this week. Your thought on all these play-in games, and LeBron and Anthony Davis mysteriously and miraculously healing yesterday for a big game.
Well, I don't know if it's miraculously healing as much as, you're all going to play the games you have to play. And I think Davis is more injured than LeBron, but LeBron's body is starting to break down a little bit, something to keep an eye on for the next two seasons. Playing games are going to be fun in the West. The Lakers and the Warriors going to draw some great ratings probably. Memphis and San Antonio, no one really cares about. So you're probably going to end up with the Lakers. And I give you an upset. Golden State, if they lose against the Lakers, I don't think they win the next play-in game. So I think either Memphis or San Antonio gets the 8th seed there. But you're talking about, for someone who likes to look at the numbers and everything, this year in the NBA playoffs, the lower seeds are probably going to be the favorites here, at least in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the Lakers playing Phoenix in round one, I mean, Phoenix has had a great season, but they got to be just angry about how this is going to end up for them.
Last question. If I tell you Clippers and Sixers in the finals, how loud does your voice get trying to tell me that I'm wrong?
I mean, I don't want to hurt the ears of the people listening, but that's not going to happen.
Oh, it's not?
I would say neither of those. I'd say neither of those teams are in the finals. All
right. Do we have a finals pick from Vince Stover?
It would make sense for it to be Brooklyn and the Lakers, just with the talent level that are there. I think someone else is coming out of the West this year, and I honestly don't know who it is. Matchups are going to play a big role in that. And I think this is Milwaukee's best year as well, best chance to get in. If Brooklyn's not healthy, they have no defense. But Brooklyn has the most talent. To me, it makes the most sense. Brooklyn, although their three top players have only played 7 games together all season long. So we'll see, but they can put up 140 points every night if they want to. So I'll go Brooklyn, Lakers. I'll be boring with the pick. But it would not surprise me if someone else comes out of the West other than L.A. because of the health issues with Davis and LeBron.
Yeah, Kyrie's more worried about the overseas situations than he is hoops right now, according to ESPN.
Yeah.
Of course, this is the man who always said the world was flat, so that's another story altogether.
Right.
He's Vince Stover of the Sports Stove Podcast. Tell us what you got going on and where we can find you on social media.
Well, if you listen to the podcast, you would have gotten 4 out of 5 picks correct in the UFC last night on the main card. But you can find us on Twitter at Sports Stove. The Sports Stove Podcast can be found anywhere you get your podcast. We got great stuff coming out. NBA playoff preview will be dropped later tonight, as well as talking Tim Tebow. We'll get a little bit Medina Spirit in there. Lots of fun stuff coming up in the podcast.
Nothing but cash and tickets on this show. He's Vince Stover. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, buddy. That's Vince Stover of the Sports Stove Podcast. Make sure to check him out. He's got great stuff. We'll be right back here on ESPN Radio. We'll preview the Angelo show coming up, and we'll tell you what to come on ESPN Radio this afternoon. That's next here on ESPN Radio 1300, 92.5. ESPN Radio 1300, 92.5. Bottom Line with Brad Taylor, presented by Stable Duel. Sports talk from a handicapping perspective. We are running late, but a special guest here on the Bottom Line as we sign off today. It is our good friend Angelo Carriero. Angelo, what's coming up on your big show coming up right after the Bottom Line?
Thank you very much, Brad Taylor, for having me on the Bottom Line this morning. I'm going to be talking about Ty Washington, Jaden Hardy, Nolan Hickman, and the UK recruiting situation. And yes, it is a situation, so be sure to tune in to listen to that, I also am going to be talking about the NBA Hall of Fame. It's the final regular season game. I don't know if you did betting props on the playoff odds and whatnot about the final game today, but we have that. We've got a little bit of MVP talk, which is pretty much a sure thing. If you haven't bet Nikola Jokic, do it now. And WrestleMania Backlashes tonight, so we'll do a run through the card.
WrestleMania Backlash. We talked about Hulk Hogan on this show today. That's a true statement. We let off the show. I know you weren't listening. I know you had to wake up and stuff. I know it's a rough night. It's Saturday nights. Saturday nights at Jake's Cigar Bar. I know it's tough for you to get up in time. That's all right. He's our good friend Angelo Carriero. We'll make sure to listen to him right after this show. Thanks for listening. Email us anytime, bottomlinelex@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @bottomlinelex. And until the next time, as always, may the winners be yours.